gals and guys, and welcome back to another episode of Cursage Gaming. Today I'll be reading a Tekken story called TEKKEN.exe. This story is split into chapters, so do be aware of that. And with that being said, let's delve our fingertips into this shit. The story starts with the player telling us how big of a fan he or she is of the Tekken franchise. The player actually never played Tekken before, but only became a fan because his or her favorite YouTuber plays it. That YouTuber in question being none other than Skeledevil601, or I mean PewDiePie. The player was watching EVO when PewDiePie lost to Tekken expert Main Man Sweet, I mean JDCR, and was sent to the losers bracket. The player vows to become the best Tekken player in the world to ovulate the top tier scrubs at EVO and avenge his or her idol. Chapter 1 starts with the player begging his or her mom for money to buy Tekken. The player's mom said she was broken, that he or she should go ask the father instead. The player had a falling out with his or her dad, so he or she had to prepare his or herself to ask for it. Once the player walked through his or her dad's door, the lights in the room went out, covering the player in darkness. The player then noticed a daddy-based darkness slip under the door and tugged on the player's knees. The player raised his or her head and knocked on the door. The player truly is the one who knocks. Slowly the metal door opened, revealing a dark figure. The figure spoke. "Tan W. Yoi Od Thou," said the dark dank figure.
I need some $100 cash,"
said the player. The dark dank figure replied with, "Oh, okay," and slung a wad of $100 cash at the player's face. The dark dank figure then R-worded the player's mom because pointless violence equals scary, according to the player. The player booted up Tekken 7 on Steam, but to the player's disappointment, nothing happened. The player found this to be quite odd and decided to buy a different version of Tekken 7 instead. The player did some digging on the interwebs and found an ad for a garage sale sponsored by Scrap.tf. Ew. The player went to the garage sale and encountered an old boy. The old boy was wearing a hoodie that covered his face, which was called Flame Pants trademark, which was cool as fuck, according to the player. The old boy said his name was Jim Azakam, totally not a spoof of Jin Kazama. I don't know where you're getting that. Jim handed the player a CD that had Tekken 7 on it. The player found this to be quite disturbing, considering Tekken 7 at the time was only available digitally on PC. The cover was completely blank except for the words TEKKEN.exe in all caps, written in Comic Sans. The player swung his or her wad of $100 cash at Jim's face and took the disc home. The player doyed the disc into his or her PC. Due to the player spamming Electric Wind God Fists, the PC began to spark. This, however, didn't matter because the game booted up just fine. The normal startup with Jin posing showed up normally, and the player normally pressed start normally. However, when the player normally pressed start for exactly, and I mean exactly, 0.63531 to Bo apartment 6 seconds, the screen changed. Jin had dark, dank eyes with glowing red dots. His flame arms trademarked were on fire and glowed in ominous red. The fire was more fierier than the flames of hell itself, according to the player. So basically what you gals and guys are seeing on screen right now. Due to the fact that this was 0.63531 to Bo apartment 6 seconds long, the player just shrugged it off. After this, the character select screen popped up, but there were only 3 characters to pick. The characters were Eddie Gordo, Lei Wulong, and Bryan Cranston. Brian Fury. Sorry, gals and guys. Now, the most disturbing thing of all of this was the music. The music was a disturbing backwards version of Kazuya's battle theme from Tekken 2, but slowed down, reversed, and a shift in pitch. The player then proceeded to play as Eddie. Even though the player picked Eddie, the player spawned in as Jin. As the round started, the narrator was distorted, reversed, pitch shifted, reversed, slowed down, and reversed. The player was so scared that he or she died. Upon getting resurrected, the player looked at the screen. To his or her horror, Jin was staring right at the player. Jin started speaking to the player. The player had a hard time understanding what Jin was saying to... Oh man. The player had a hard time understanding what Jin was saying, due to his insanely racist Japanese accent. The player soon realized that Jin was telling the player how to beat Eddie.
朋友是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片，在香港这座城市的设置
said Jin. The player used Avenger all caps, which was an unblockable attack, and also fast as fuck, according to the player. Not as fast as FaZe Killer Keemstar, but still fast nonetheless. The player easily folded Eddie by spamming this move. After Eddie got folded, he exploded into a gory mess. After that, Jin began laughing like a madman, similarly to how Walter White did in the 11th episode of the 4th season of Breaking Bad titled Crawl Space. The manic laughing was cute. Come on, gals and guys, say it with me. According to the player. Fast forward 6 months later, past the ending of Ozymandias. The player flew to Japan via an airplane to win in the EVO tournament. The player encountered JDCR, the man behind the jumping of PewDiePie. Angered by seeing the one who defeated his or her idol, the player absolutely ovulated JDCR by spamming Avenger all caps. Once Jin hit JDCR's character, which was Sub-Zero by the way, JDCR himself exploded into a gory mess. Once again, Jin was Walter White laughing, but for some reason, the player couldn't help but laugh too. The player quickly snapped out of this trance and went to vomit. The player was disgusted with his or herself due to the fact that his or her quest for greatness and vengeance resulted in someone dying. The player shouted, "I don't want any of this!" The player's dramatic character development moment was soon interrupted by an evil, girly, and foreboding giggle coming from behind him or her. The player turned around and saw none other than Felix Arvid Ulf Kjellberg, aka PewDiePie. PewDiePie laughed maniacally as he revealed his most evil and most vile machination yet. He revealed that his loss to JDCR was fake in order to convince one of his fans to avenge him and unlock the true potential of the Kazama Edgelord style trademarked. The player watched in shock and terror and horror and fear and ecstasy as his or her idol winded up the Avenger all caps move IRL. PewDiePie then said in a demonic voice, "It's called the Bro Fist trademark. Now bro fist me bro." He then hit the player directly in the face, killing him or her. Good game. So that was a pretty good creepypasta, if I do say so myself. Now, Tekken doesn't really have any horror elements besides the story of Tekken 7 because it's god-awful. RE3 Remake has a better story. Okay, I take that back, but you gals and guys get the point. Backtracking to what I said approximately 10.3 seconds ago. Tekken isn't really that scary. With that being said, this pasta was terrifying. I was honestly shocked by how the author managed to actually frighten me with the story. The maniacal Walter White crawlspace-like laugh Jin did horrified me to my very core due to the fact that it was normal Jin and not Devil Jin. Another horrifying thing that thinged was the drug deal, garage sale. The hooded figure giving the haunted CD to the player was the most original thing about this story. The author is really out here inventing new ways to tell a story. Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould wish they could be as creative as the author. The best thing about this story was the arc the player went through. The degradation of the player's morality was done to the utmost perfection. It was so enthralling seeing this once happy-go-lucky player regret murdering somebody due to their bloodthirsty vengeance quest. When the player started crying like how Jesse Pinkman did in the 2nd episode of the 5th season of the best television show ever to grace his earth-breaking bad titled Madrigal, I too started crying due to the author's masterful writing. That exact moment also reminded me when Jesse went into a deep depression after killing Gail Bedecker. Interesting callback from the author. Spoiler alert, by the way. Now, one improvement I would have made to this story was changing the author's favorite YouTuber. Me personally, I would have chosen Brie Larson. Her content is just through the roof in terms of creativity, entertainment, and overall likability. I bet everyone around the world loves her as much as I do. Also, the realism in the story isn't all that real. The reason being is that this story uses scrap.tf. No one uses that, it's all about backpack.tf. I also have one minor nitpick. It's that the player described the Avenger all caps move as fast as fuck. That move is slower than a fly trying to eat out a horse's asshole. One other thing that could have been done a tad better is the beginning of the story. The whole "I'm a big fan of X franchise" thing has been done to death, and is starting to get a little bit stale. Not as stale as the stale Duty Pebbles that is RE3 make, but you get the point. A better way you could have started the story is with a flash forward. Maybe show the player 6 months into the future with a beard, new head of hair, new pair of glasses, and buying an M60 light machine gun. No, this is not a reference to the first episode of the 5th season of Breaking Bad titled Live Free or Die. I don't know where you're getting that from. Disregarding all that bullshit I just said a second ago, it was still a pretty good creepypasta, and I highly suggest you gals and guys to give it a read. Links to the story down below. This has been another episode of Cursage Gaming, and if you like what you saw, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Twitter to see what stupid political tweets I make. Dislike if you dislike it. This is me, Skeletal Devil, and I'm out of this bitch.